This is Talks the Talk podcast with Lar Flynn.
Today, my guest is Mick Brien. He's a proud Wexford man that I know personally for over 15 years through radio and through broadcasting. Apart from presenting Ireland's longest running folk music show and ballad radio show, Sinead, if not the world longest show, Mick, at this stage.
So that's it.
He is a college lecturer in youth work, is his area of expertise. He is also the singer and frontman to one of Ireland's leading and most popular bands, the Druids. And again, more about that later. He has been a Kildare resident for a while now, and he is dad to three amazing young men, Micheál, Seamus and Sean. He is a serious professional in all he undertakes, but I do know there was great crack, fun and much more in there, and I'm so proud and privileged to be sitting with Mick O'Brien this morning having tea. Thanks, Mick.
Well, Lard, it's a great privilege and a pleasure for me as well. It's very surreal, actually, to be honest, to be sitting here with you.
I know, the roles reversed, Mick.
Roles reversed. I always get very nervous when this happens, but I'm going to relax now and enjoy this. So
I want to ask you about immediate things first. How has COVID-19 been for you?
Oh, it's been horrific, to be honest. So we done our last gig as a band on the 13th of March 2020 in New Jersey, in Cleveland, and we were due to do one on the 14th in New Jersey, and we got word that we had to leg it out of America. We lost a fortune. We lost a fortune, and I suppose that wasn't even the worst of it, Lar. Coming home then, and you're used to a particular lifestyle for 12 years as a touring band, and it's gone. That lifestyle is gone, and I know all the other lads in the band, including myself as well, we've all kind of suffered for that, kind of from headwise, I'm always reluctant to mention that word depression, but certainly it has had a strong effect on everyone's mental health. The lockdowns, then the lack of movement, the lack of creativity, and so on. It's been very difficult. Absolutely. Really difficult.
And we'll come back and hit on the Druids and talk about that and those effects it might have on yourself and the lads, or certainly you can speak about yourself in it. But let's go back, Mick, to your home county, Wexford. I know you're a proud Wexford man, and you wear the colours regularly. I often see you in Sinead radio show in Dublin City FM. Tell us about Wexford and growing up and family life.
I am a very proud Wexford man, although I wasn't born there.
Oh, okay.
Right. Everyone thinks I was born in Wexford. I was born in Wales.
Come on.
Yeah, I was. I was born in Cardiff in Wales. So both my parents had emigrated during the 1960s, during the economic recession in Ireland, and it just so happened that I was born in Wales. Now, I think I was there for 6 months, and then I came back to Wexford. So Wexford is my home. That's where I'm from. I kind of, even today when I go to Wexford, I kind of relax, and I feel like I belong there. Growing up there was a very, there were very good things about it, and there was also very challenging things about it as well. The challenging things were kind of, we grew up in an economic recession, and there was a lot of poverty. The 1980s was a very difficult time in Ireland, and when we talk about that difficulty, it tends to be focused on urban areas, but a rural area like where I grew up in Ballycanoe in Wexford suffered greatly from unemployment and emigration and all that, and we felt that as kids growing up, and the expectations then in terms of you as a young man, the bar was lowered. The expectation where I grew up was that you would you'd stay in school as long as you could. If you could get to kind of intercert, you'd be doing well.
Right. Okay.
I didn't get that far.
Yeah. Was there not much expected?
Nothing was expected, really, to be honest. It was expected then that you would go and work in some factory and you'd stick that as long as you could, and but the dole queue wasn't too far away from you, so they were the expectations.
What did you want to do? What did you do when Mick O'Brien was 12, 13, 14?
I wanted to be an actor.
Did you?
I really wanted to be an actor, and
you got there in some form.
I did. Yeah,
we'll chat about that in a while. Yeah.
I did. I think it's hard to speak about yourself in this manner, but I certainly was very passionate about it, and I used to do a lot of amateur dramatics and done plays like The Field and
did you?
Plays like that, which I loved. I absolutely loved it.
When you were younger, or older?
Yeah,
really?
Younger. Like,
and where did you do them, in school? Or?
No, in the local drama group down at home when I was 13, 14, 15 years of age. Yeah.
Wow.
And the stage became somewhere where I felt very comfortable, you know, really comfortable, and I loved it, you know, I loved it. Yeah.
I often find with people like yourself, Mick, and from knowing you from the time that I do know you, or the 15 or so years that I know you, people expect somebody like yourself in front of a microphone to be this all singing, all dancing, tea making machine. And I personally think, for me, I know you're not really, because you're quiet, not reserved, I don't know what the word is, almost shy even. And then, you know, the contradiction of that is you'll go out and you'll front the band. Now, maybe you're still hiding behind the microphone, and do you think the stage and doing those shows like The Field would have been a kind of a mask?
Oh, without a doubt. I think you're dead right. I'm very quiet, quite reserved, quite private. I'm a very private person as well, and I don't let too many people into the old circle, you know. But definitely, the escape for me is on stage, you know, where I become an actor, you know. I always say that to the lads in the band. I always say, like, I'm not really a musician. Yeah. I'm an actor. That's what I am. You know, I play the part of a front man in a band, and the stage allows me to do that. It allows me to escape out of my head. It allows me to kind of to be who I want to be and to dream. You know, that's the way I see it. You know, and I love that. You know,
I heard some of our most well-known performers saying that as well. Like when they walk on that stage, 8 o'clock, I'm an act. If I go home like that, I'm in serious trouble. Well,
that's the problem. You see, that's the problem. Sometimes is that. You have to learn how to be like that on stage, and then you have to learn how to stop it when you come off stage.
And separate them.
And separate the two, you know. And it takes time to do that too, you know.
So, did you go to secondary school? Did you go to a job, or what happened when 13, 14, 15 hit? I went
to secondary school for a very short time. I found that secondary school was a very bad experience for me, a really bad experience. And I felt I didn't belong there, so I legged it as quickly as I could, and I ended up working in all sorts of jobs. Like I worked in a steel factory, and I served my time for a bit as an apprentice butcher. I'd worked for a plasterer, mixing plaster. I'd done all that kind of labouring kind of jobs for a while. I worked in a petrol station, but it was never for me, Lar. You know, It was like a building site. I've huge respect for people who work on building sites. I just couldn't do it. Do you know what I mean? And that was the expectation, and I just wasn't one of them people. You know.
When you were doing all these, and you were mixing the plaster and throwing a bit of paranormal in with the concrete and all that. I did a little bit of that for myself for a while myself, Mick. When I was 18 or 19, were you a dreamer?
Oh, I was dreaming constantly. You know. I used to play to 60,000 people at home in the bedroom, you know what I mean? Yeah, my dreams were, you know, at that time my dreams was to be an actor, as I said, and, you know, I just couldn't figure out a way to do it. I just couldn't, I couldn't see the path. There was no path. There wasn't. That's the truth, you know. Now, coincidentally, my son is an actor now, which I'm very proud of. But no, it was kind of dead ends, you know, so it was from one job to the next and sticking it as long as you could, and you know, kind of getting up on a Monday morning, dreading Monday morning coming, you know, and dreading Tuesday morning coming and Wednesday morning coming. And like the time in work was hell, you know. And I lived for when I went home. That's what I lived for, you know. So
that was my next kind of question. What made it worth it? What made it worthwhile?
I think...
What was the escape?
The escape was, for me, I discovered alcohol very quickly, and that was my escape, you know. I discovered alcohol at a very young age, and I dived into it, you know. I lashed into it, and it lit me up like a Christmas tree, you know, and it turned me into somebody I wanted to be, you know. Became my very best friend very quickly, and it became a huge part of my life for many years, you know. And I suppose that was the escape all the time, and that's where I was looking towards, like at 13, 14 years of age. You know, I discovered quite early, actually, that I didn't drink like other people. I discovered that, you know, the lads, we'd be down the fields drinking, you know, and the time would come for them to go home. But that was the last place I wanted to go, you know. I always wanted the party to continue, you know, and I'd create situations where the party would continue, and to my own detriment in many cases, you know. And I could see as the years went by, then the lads were getting up and they were going to work, or they were getting on with their lives. But for me, like, that was a serious challenge, you know, because 15, 16 years of age, I kind of needed to drink in the morning, you know, and that became a massive problem in my life, you know, massive.
And was it that actor's mask in a way?
I think it probably was. I think as a kid.
Did you go other places? I mean, like when you were, like you said, it took you to places where you wanted to be.
Yeah.
That was the effect.
Yeah, it was. I suppose I discovered, Lara, at an early age that I suppose I had demons in my head. I described them as demons in my head, demons in my head. I was riddled with fear. Riddled with anxiety and riddled with a feeling of low self-esteem and low self-worth, and alcohol cured that for me. It kind of it took all that away, and that's where it brought me to. It brought me to a place of normality psychologically, for a while. And
I think sometimes, Mick, what you just said there just reminded me of something, and I don't know why. And it was the fear and the anxiety of things. The question is, did you always know you were going to be the front man in the Druids? Not necessarily the Druids as such, but did you know you were going to act at some stage? Did you know you were going to be a front man, a performer, a singer?
I suppose I didn't know that I was going to be, but I wanted to be.
Okay. So the question is, did that anxiety and fear stem from how the hell am I going to get there? Out of Wexford, the way you're describing it?
Not really, no. I don't think so. I think my fears and anxieties came from, I suppose, my family upbringing, really,
okay.
To be honest. I grew up in what would be described today as the dysfunctional family, and the conditions that we lived in didn't lend itself to you feeling good about yourself. Do you know what I mean? So that's where the fear and anxiety. Now I didn't know that then, but I've discovered that since.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
You said it's a young age to be addicted to alcohol. It's a seriously young age, and it's funny. I know a guy who became addicted to alcohol at 12 and 13 years of age. Yeah. And he said the exact same thing as you, which is really, it's significant. And he said the exact same phrase. He said it was his best friend as well.
Yeah. I can vividly remember 15, 16 years of age, knowing that I needed this. I needed this to function, I needed it to be even able to sit down and have a conversation with someone like yourself, Lar, right? Just a friend to sit down and just have the crack. I needed something inside me to do that, because I just felt I wasn't good enough. I just felt that I didn't measure up to people's expectations of me, and I felt I felt outside of everything. I had no connection. I had no connection with people, or I had no connection with anything. But the very minute I drank, I got that connection. Yeah.
You're the everyman.
I was actually a Jekyll and Hyde. That's what I was.
Yeah.
From a quiet, kind of shy, insecure person to 3-4 points later, I'm the one in control of the party,
king of the castle.
Absolutely, no problem to me whatsoever. It kind of I turned into something that I wanted to be. Yeah,
and something you didn't want to be at the same time.
And I absolutely didn't want to be at the same time, and I knew that too. I knew that, and that's where the battle is, and that's where the turmoil starts. In your head.
So what changed it, Mick? What was the point you got to when you said, I have to stop this nonsense?
I said that several times. I a number of events happened. At 16, 17 years of age, a number of things happened that I'd been involved in, and I would have said to myself, this needs to stop, but couldn't.
But you were aware of them, though? You were aware they were happening?
Very aware of them, very aware of them, but I couldn't. I just couldn't stop. And then something else happened when I was 18 years old, and something I was involved in, something I'm really not proud of.
We all have moments like that, by the way.
We do. And I ended up in the court system again. Now, I had a fair string of court appearances before that, and instead of being sent to prison, I was sent to rehab. I was sent to a treatment centre. And compliments to the judge for that. I didn't think that at the time, but I do. But I do now. Yeah. So I ended up in Asher Reed Treatment Centre in Wexford, 18 years old, and literally it changed my life. Literally.
Brilliant.
From a person who went in there who didn't want to be there, to a person, when the time came to leave, I didn't want to leave. Wow. I would have happily stayed there for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and do you think the seed was sown and planted there, Mick, maybe to what you're doing right now and work with youth work and reaching out to younger people?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Even before that, even during my drinking days and stuff, There was a youth project started in the local area. I was probably about 13 at the time, maybe, and I became involved in it. And I experienced something in there that I didn't experience anywhere else. I experienced the value, what I know today is the values of youth work, which is empowerment, inclusion, participation, and equality. And I was treated in that manner. So when I was leaving there, they were asking, say, will we see you tomorrow? Come back tomorrow.
Okay.
Where most of the time, when I was leaving somewhere, they were telling me not to come back. Do you know what I mean?
I hear you exactly.
So the experience of them values of youth work kind of put in my head somewhere that Jesus, it'd be great to be able to do that, you know. And I didn't know, somewhere in my head, I didn't know that you could work at this. Like, I thought they were all volunteers.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't know that it was a profession, that youth workers were a profession. And it wasn't until I stopped drinking and stopped using loads of other stuff and moved to Dublin that I discovered that you could actually work as a youth worker.
Before we get to Dublin, Mick, I want to mention a man that I know is important to you in Wexford, a guy called Pat Rossiter. Can you tell me a little bit about Pat?
It's funny, I've been talking about Pat so much lately. And
there must be a reason for that.
There is, absolutely, there is. I never get fed up talking about him. I encountered him. The housing estate, council housing estate where I grew up, we had lived there since 1976, I think it was. I don't know what age I was, I was only a child when we moved in there, but Pat moved in on the front row of houses, maybe 8 or 9 or 10 years later, and there was something about him, you know, when he moved in. You have to realise the context of this. This is a very small community, right? Pat was like a rock star walking around the place. Really? He really was. Like,
what made him?
He had this charisma, you know, and he dressed differently.
Okay.
He used to wear a cravat, you know, and he had a beard, and he smoked roll-ups, and he held himself. He held himself like a rock star, you know. Okay. Although he wasn't aware of any of that. It wasn't consciously he was doing that. That's just the type of person he was. And I was automatically drawn to him as a kid, you know. I used to see him, and I'd kind of I'd admire the way he held himself, you know. As the years went by, then, you know, 12, 13, 14 years of age, I got to know him, you know, and kind of say hello to him, and as the years rolled on another bit, I became very friendly with him, and I used to call into him. Just the poor man. I used to call into him when I was drunk on my head, like, you know, at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And he'd be up writing. He was a poet, and he'd be up writing and writing songs and writing these masterpieces, like masterpieces, you know. He had this poem that he wrote in front of me when I was there, and the poem was, I can still remember a bit of it today. It says, "Sail on, you ship of Erin, you're made of steel from stern to bow, and harness your energy to the mighty ocean plough." Right? That was the first verse in it, and I remember him writing it. I remember saying it. And I could see it in my head.
Just as I have.
Yeah, I could see it, like, you know. And he kind of drew me into this idea of writing and literature and songs. And he was a singer as well. He could play guitar and sing. And he was the only one that I knew that could sing and play guitar. He introduced me to the music of Pecker Dunn and the Clancys and, you know, Bob Dylan and people like that, you know. And I was, at that time, I was into ska music. I was into Madness and the Specials and all that. Yeah. And I was into that music, particularly the Specials, because the Specials were writing about social issues, but in London.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. But here was a man who was writing poems and writing songs about where I was living, and that grabbed me. You know what I mean? That really grabbed me, and he awoke something in me. He awoke that love of folk music in me, and. Little did I know, that it would become a huge part of my life after that. So I owe him so much, you know.
And what was he? You know, you said he was different.
Yeah.
Was he maybe an outsider as well? Like, what's brought to mind is Johnny Mulhern's wonderful song "Maddie," who was a poet, and people were saying, "Oh, Jesus, keep away from him. He's a poet. He's not right in the head and all that." But obviously, he was extra special and special to you as Corey.
Yeah, Pat was an outsider, no question about it. Without a doubt, you know, you hit the nail on the head there, you know, and he embraced that. He liked that, you know. Yeah. I suppose some of that has rubbed off on me a little bit as well. Do you know what I mean? Over the years.
Well, do you know what it is? Maybe when you were calling to him at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning as well, Mick, maybe you were helping him as well, because he probably thought, well, here's a young guy who obviously thinks that he's an outsider as well, and I'm going to not show him the ropes, but I'm going to show him my work and let him in.
Yeah.
And you were saying earlier, like, that you don't let too many people into your, let's call it your inner circle, which is your own inner person, I suppose, as well. And many people are like that as well, particularly in the business you're in, the show business world as well. So at 15, 16, 17, 18, you went to get sober. Is that how did you do it? Who was your help?
Well,
who did you reach out to?
There was many people that helped me. I think my father was a huge, a massive influence on me in terms of that, because he had gotten sober many years before. So I could see the way he lived his life, you know. So he was a massive influence on me. I really, when I came out of treatment, I was still living in Wexford, and I really struggled. I came out just before Christmas in 1991. And it was probably the loneliest time of my life, because the demons were still in my head. Do you know what I mean? They were still there, and there was nothing to take them away, you know. I remember just trying to survive from day to day, you know, just living in my head, and it was horrific. It was absolutely horrific. The pain of early recovery, I would not wish it on anybody, you know. You don't know who you are, you don't know what you are, you don't know what you like, you don't know what you like, what you don't like. You're lost. Just kind of, I often describe myself as a lost soul, you know, and that's what I was. I was a lost soul, just drifting in the air. You know what I mean? It wasn't until I moved to Dublin, which was shortly after that, that I really kind of got into recovery, and I encountered another man. Sean Connors, the comedian.
Yeah. What a lovely, sweet man he is as well.
Yeah. When I encountered him, my life changed. He invested in me. You know, he invested. I'm not talking about financial investment. I mean, he invested himself in me. His time, his experience, because he had walked that road as well. Do you know? And his experience, his understanding, his compassion. He invested that in me, and I experienced nothing only kindness from him, you know. So at that time, like, he was riding high as a comedian, like, he really was. He used to go on before Joe Dolan. Joe Dolan was Ireland's biggest superstar at the time, and so Sean used to go on before Joe Dolan, and you know, I still often think of the nights, like, Sean would be out working maybe 5 nights a week, and I used to drive him, and so we'd be in Killarney, we'll say, on a Thursday night. So we'd drive down and we'd have the chat on the way down, and we'd drive home then as well. And you get home at 4 o'clock in the morning. But the conversations on the way down about life and about how to live in recovery, how to live sober, they're the valuable pieces for me, you know. So
it's interesting. I didn't know you drove Sean as well. And did that? I just wanted to go back just a little bit. When you were walking around, you were a lost soul and things. How dark were the days?
Oh, they were dark, Lar. They were very dark. You know, suicide was an option. Definitely was. It used to come and go within me. You know, I had tried it a couple of times before when I was drinking, but I hadn't got the courage to try it when I wasn't drinking. You know, when I got sober. But it definitely was a desire. It definitely was. So it was dark. It was very dark, you know.
So when you were on the road with Sean Connors, and you were obviously hanging around at Joe Dolan shows, and you probably, you know, as the roar of the grease paint and the smell of the crowd. did that rub off? And when you went, "This is for me"?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Like, I remember, you know, I'd a number of heroes in folk music at the time. I was a huge fan of the Wolf Tones, right? And I was a huge fan of Danny Doyle, and a huge fan of the Dermot O'Leary and the Bards and the Furies and bands like that, you know. And over a period of a year and a half, I met them all with Sean, and not just met them, but was in their company and drinking tea and having the crack, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I was starstruck. Like, I really was starstruck. I remember. I used to go see Dermot O'Leary and the Bards a lot. They used to play a lot in Wexford during the summer, you know. And I used to go see him a lot, and I thought he was fabulous, right? He was brilliant. And so Sean was doing a week in Clontarf Castle with Dermot O'Leary. We arrive in on the Monday night, and so Sean introduces me to him, and I couldn't even speak, you know. I couldn't even speak, no. And but as the week went on, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. As the week went on, we were having conversations. Me and Dermot O'Leary was having conversations while Sean was on stage doing his thing, and I actually settled very quickly in myself. I settled very quickly and was able to hold a conversation with him, and he was a lovely man as well. And the same with the Wolf Tones. I remember gigging with the Wolf Tones as well, and like they were my ultimate heroes at the time, and met them as well, and the same kind of thing. And I discovered that these celebrities are just people. Yeah. That's really what they are. They're people, and they bleed like the rest of us,
and they're trying to earn a crust.
They're trying to earn a crust, Lar. That's right. But lovely people, lovely people,
And I suppose the equivalent of it all, Mick, is that you're all passionate about what you do.
Yeah,
you have to be in that business, I think.
Yeah. I think, like, if you take a band like the Wolf Tones and 55 years on the road, like, you have to be passionate about it.
And even your own band, the Druids, like,
Yeah.
As you said earlier, like, your last gig was in March, and I know you're itching to get out as well, but we will go back to that as well.
You're listening to Lar Flynn's Talks the Talk podcast.
We won't go to music quite yet, because maybe we will, because obviously from there you decided that I'm going to perform. What did you do? Did you pick up a guitar, a Bowron, or what was the first formation of the Mick O'Brien Deluxe Extravaganza Roadshow?
I picked up a Bowron. That was my first thing. Again, the context of that is that I was very shy, very insecure, lost again, and I remember I bought a Bowron. I bought a Bowron and a guitar on the same day.
Okay.
We were in, it wasn't Walton's, I can't think of the name of the shop, but a Music Maker was the name of the shop. I was in there, myself and Sean Connors again, and Sean got a serious discount off the guitar and the Bowron for me, and I went home. Sure, I hadn't a clue how to play either of them, I was rattled, and but over time I kind of I got stuck into it a bit, and I seen it as a way of performance. Do you know what I mean? I seen it as a way of doing something. And Sean rang Kieran Kelly one day, coming up to Paddy's Day, and he said, "Would you mind if I stuck a young lad up beside you playing?" And so I went on and played with him in the Broadford House in Ballantyre on Paddy's Day.
Gosh.
And that was my first gig in long night. I used to be in the pub singing songs and holding court and all that kind of stuff, but my first gig really sober, and it was great, and it kind of went on from there.
With Kieran Kelly?
Yeah.
Okay. And was the goal in buying the guitar and the Bowron to become the performer?
Yeah. I felt I needed an outlet. I felt I needed something to kind of escape out of my head. Like, I wasn't really... I think a lot of people in recovery find that outlet in sport or something like that, but I wasn't really into sport. Do you know what I mean? So I needed something else. And, music. I love music, and I always have loved music, and so music was really where I went to. Yeah.
So you mentioned the Wolf Tones and how big of an influence they were, and you went on, I suppose, many years later to form the Druids, and the Druids have gone through a change in lineup of personnel over the years as well, and all brilliant people and all brilliant musicians and all passionate about the kind of music that you sing. Can you tell our listeners what kind of what band you are, what music you play, and why? Yeah,
well, we started out life 12 years ago as a rebel band, singing political songs, particularly in the Irish context and the national question. Why? People often ask us why. Is because that's what we believe in. That's why. I believe and still believe that these songs have as much a right to be played as any other songs. They tell the story of Ireland, they tell the story of our country, they commemorate, they celebrate, and I believe they have their place in Irish society and in Irish music as such. So we started out life just kind of very simple ambitions, very small ambitions of just becoming a 3-piece band and playing in local pubs, once or twice a week or whatever. That was the ambition of the band, together with Gary Lawler and Paddy Mangan, and but in a short space of time, it kind of took off, and we found ourselves playing the Barrowlands in Scotland in 2010. Yeah. I didn't see that one coming. We ended up in Santa Ponza in Spain, playing at a festival, a Celtic festival over there. The idea of a tour in America came up, and we jumped on that. lost everything we had on that tour. But anyway,
that was a learning experience. Was at the beginning, was it hard to get a gig, Mick?
Oh, it was very hard. It was very hard.
What were people afraid of?
I think they were afraid of the political nature of the songs. You know, I think they were afraid of kind of offending people and you know, kind of excluding people from. But that's not what rebel music is about. It's not about exclusion.
It's inclusion.
It's about inclusion. You know, like I think in the beginning, and I have to take responsibility for this. The songs were presented in a not so much an aggressive way, but certainly they were in your face. Do you know what I mean? And that was me. I was the one that was doing that. But I learned fairly quickly that to pull back a bit. You know, that it's not always he who shouts the loudest gets heard. You know what I mean?
There's a song I think of as well. It's funny when I'm talking to you, Mick, music and songs obviously come to mind as well. And I'm thinking about a kind of a song that has a touch of anger in it as well, and it's Christy Moore's Veronica Guerin song.
Yeah.
But he always said it's an angry song, and at the end of it, like, it gets a bit louder. Yeah. But he has to sing it in a beautiful way. Like, did you probably think that, as I said, you had to stand back and think, how can I get this message across without being in people's faces? Yeah. There has to be a gentler way, or maybe gentler is not the word, but there has to be a more subtle way of doing it.
Yeah. I think what I noticed very quickly was that the manner in which I was presenting the narrative of the song, in some ways was making people angry. And I could see that from the stage. And when people are angry, they don't hear anything. They hear nothing, you know. So toning down what I was doing was very important. And over the years, I suppose, I hope I've learned how to do that and communicate in a different manner, you know. Yeah.
And you were talking about school, you couldn't wait to get out of school as well. And I had to listen back to some of your conversations with other people as well. And you kind of said that you learned a lot from music. And I'm thinking of Bruce Springsteen's song, No Surrender. And there's a line in there, Mick, that says, we learned more from a 3-minute record, baby, than we ever learned in school.
Well, it's so true, like, you know, it's so true. I learned all of my history through songs. I've learned all of the social context of this country that we live in through songs. You know, my teachers have been the likes of Danny Doyle, the Tones, the Dubliners, Luke Kelly, Damien Dempsey, people like that, Paul McAdam. They're the people who hold these narratives, who hold these songs, you know. So Frank Hart gave that very famous statement, which just is so apt, is the people in power write the history, those who suffer write the songs. And it's so true, you know. Great
social commentators.
Yeah, massive, yeah.
And just where we're sitting, Mick, I'm surrounded by pictures of the Dubliners.
Yeah.
Your beloved Celtic, Henrik Larsson, is up there, a signed picture as well. Yeah. James Connolly, Christy and Luke Kelly.
Yeah.
I notice when I say all the names, I only say Christy by his first name. Because and you could say Luke by his first name and people would still know who you're talking about. And the likes of Damo can now fit into that category as well.
Absolutely.
The band, tell us a little bit about the band. I know you started off with Paddy and Gary Lawler and you went to America and you said that was a learning experience for all the right reasons, but you learned so much from that. Tell us a little bit about your first trip to America.
Yeah, we done our first tour in America in 2011. How it came about was very interesting. I had done an interview on radio in New York, and in the course of the conversation with the presenter, a man called John McDonough, who presents a program called Radio Free Éireann. It's an Irish radio program on WOLR or something like that, radio in New York. Anyway, in the course of the interview, I had just said, as an off comment, he said, any plans to come to America to play? And I said, sure, Jesus, we'd love to come to America, but the expenses would be so high. And so the next day I got a phone call from John saying, well, look, if you want to come to America, I have a place for you to stay, and you can stay there for free. Wow. And we went, all right, okay. So that cut the expenses really, you know. So we got together and we decided we'd go. So we put together a number of dates. Like, we were kind of playing in kind of bars out in Queens and in the Bronx and out in Yonkers and places like that, and in Manhattan as well. And it was a very, like, it was a month. We were out there for a month, and we played every single night for a month.
Oh, no, and that's tough.
It was tough, and we'd no transport. We used to take our gear out on the 4 train. I remember going out on the 4 train out to the Bronx with all our equipment and all our instruments and everything, and then getting back into the subway and coming back into Manhattan and then walking, maybe 10 or 12 blocks back to where we were staying with all the equipment. And so it was very tough. But like, to be honest with you, we lost everything we had in it. Like, we got treated by some of the bar owners who were Irish, I have to say. They treated us very badly, really, really badly. You'd agree a price with them, and then, they'd want to give you half of it. Do you know that type of thing? And the arguments and the rows and all that stuff that went on. And it really affected us to a point, I suppose, where by the end of the tour we were broke. We had nothing. And, the only thing we had was where we were staying. And thank God that was free. Then there was we encountered a Dublin man down in 13th and A down the Lower East side of Manhattan, and Larry Watson. And Larry fed us for free every day, so for about 2 weeks, he fed 4 of us for free, and so there's the other side of it. Do you know what I mean?
Didn't put you off, did it, going back?
No. What it did do, Lar, was it gave us some serious learning. It gave us some serious learning in terms of what not to do. And so the next year we went back, 2012, we went back and we had a really good tour. We made some money and we done it differently, and we didn't play them bars anymore. And we started branching out of New York up into Connecticut and up into Boston and New Jersey, Philadelphia, places like that, and it's just kind of snowballed from there to a point now where this year, 2020, we should have been doing 5 tours in the States.
Wow.
So we should have been more or less in the States for half the year this year, but COVID kind of put a stop to that. So that was the end of that, And
I know just before American tour, you lost Paddy Mangan in the Druids.
Yeah, we Paddy has been with us for 12 years. I've done thousands of gigs with Paddy, thousands of them, and he told us in January last year, or this year, sorry, he told us in January that he was leaving the band in March after the tour in America, due to his own kind of his own life and decisions he had to make, and sure, he's a huge loss. You know what I mean? A massive loss, and I miss him. I haven't seen him at all actually since we got off the plane in America.
Wow.
So
he's a lovely guy, I have to say. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
And I have to say he was always supportive of the little gigs I used to run as well. He used to come out as well. He's a really nice guy.
Good guy, yeah.
And we wish him well. The current lineup of the Druids, you have yourself, you have Zach Moran, you have Gary Lawler, you have Gary O'Brien, and you've a new guy as well, have you?
Dennis Moran.
Dennis Moran.
Yep.
Wow. So you're a 5-piece now.
We're a 5-piece band now, with a different focus on our music. We kind of, I suppose, after 10 or 12 years of doing the Rebel songs, I kind of felt that we needed to do something else, because there was people coming to our gigs, and friends of ours, and even lads in the band or ourselves who were affected by issues that we couldn't sing about because we were kind of pigeonholed a bit, do you know? Like the thing with the band currently is that all of us in the band, everyone in the band, is in recovery.
Okay.
Right. So we're all in the same situation. So if we're not going to sing about addiction, who will? Do you know what I mean? But we couldn't do it because we were people who come to our gigs were expecting us to sing the Rebel songs. So we decided to move to the side a little bit and kind of look at other issues around addiction, homelessness, and so on. Some of McGowan's songs as well that I always wanted to do and we couldn't do, you know. So I suppose in some senses the COVID-19 thing has been a really good opportunity for us to
explore that.
And we've dived into it, you know.
And I suppose I was thinking on the way up, like the Druids singing the songs of Ireland and the history of Ireland through your storytelling and you being the front man and things like that. I presume there's still an appetite there for that as well.
Yeah.
But things evolve.
Yeah.
And what you've just said kind of resonates because history changes. Yeah. And history is now, I suppose, as well. So the fact that you're writing about housing or unemployment or equal pay rights or whatever it may be, it's all relevant.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is. I think there's so much to sing about in this country. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like we have a homeless crisis in Ireland, which is like I believe that if the political will was there, that crisis could be solved. You know, and it could be solved very quickly, but the political will is not there to do it. Yeah. And songs, I think, are a great vehicle to highlight that. You know, to highlight the inaction of of the government or the inaction of policymakers in terms of that. So, I'm very happy with what we're doing at the moment. I'm really happy with what we're doing at the moment. It's exciting, you know.
Yeah, and I just want to go back. I want to mention a couple of things. I'm always been aware of the Druids, and one of the things I liked about you, Mick. Not one of the things. One of the many things I liked about you. I remember somebody said to me once, "The one thing I like about you is," and I said, "It's just the one thing. Just the one thing, is it?"
Yeah.
But one of the many things is, I'm not an overly political beast of a person and things like that. But you never honed in on me. You never tried to preach to me anything like that, and I always respected that as well, because I know you respected that I wasn't aware of it or aware of and am I embarrassed about that? In a way, I think people who don't know, or you'll always hear people say, I don't speak Irish, and there's always a little tinge of embarrassment that you don't know enough about it. But I think we will all learn more from your 3-minute records or 4-minute records that you're singing. Tell me about James Connolly, Mick, because I know he's your man.
Oh, Connolly's my ultimate hero, I think. Connolly. So Connolly was born in Edinburgh. He's probably one of the most famous Irish patriots, but not born in Ireland. So born in Edinburgh to Irish parents, and I love just the principles of his life. He was a socialist, you know. People in the States understand socialism in a different context than we understand it here, so it's important to say that. But he was a socialist, so his kind of mantra was about equality, you know, equality of outcome for people. And he had a very tragic life, like, you know. He lost one of his children, you know. She burned to death in a fire in Dublin. He was in the States at the time, and the first he heard about it was when his wife and family went over to see him, and he was expecting to see her there, and she had burned to death. Very tragic life indeed. But his contribution in terms of the 1916 rebellion, if you notice just behind you, Lar, this is really good now for a podcast, me pointing at something.
Yeah, well done. And even better is me turning to look at it.
Just behind you is the Irish Proclamation. So Padraig Pearse is credited for writing the proclamation. But the first line in that proclamation, it says, "To the Irish men and women, in the name of God and the dead generations of which he receives her old tradition of nationhood, Ireland through us summons her children to her flag and strikes for freedom." Connolly is responsible for the first line of that, Irish men and Irish women.
Yeah.
That's Connolly, without doubt. Now, this was at a time, so Connolly was a feminist.
That's the inclusion.
Yes, absolutely. Connolly was a feminist long before feminism was popular. Do you know? He was a man of equality. He was a man of empowerment, and I just loved that. I just loved that.
Did it make him unpopular?
Oh, extremely unpopular. Oh, extremely unpopular. Yeah, he wasn't very well liked. You know, he was a union organizer as well. Like, and you know, he would have been very active in Wexford, down in Pearse's factory, down in the lockouts, and 1911, 1912, 1913. So he would have been hugely politically active. And I suppose in some senses, the only thing that he's known for in Ireland is his contribution during the 16 rebellion. But there is so much more. There's so much more. I'd really encourage people to dive in and explore him, you know. I
was just about to ask you, where would people go to look? Can you suggest some reading or something that people will find out more about James Connolly?
Yeah, absolutely. Connolly he wrote many books, many books. He has a book called The Question of Labour, which is a really good one about workers' rights and unionisation, and there's many biographies after being written about him. There's lots of documentaries on YouTube about him. Dive in.
Absolutely. And I presume he was a young age when he died?
Oh, he was only in his 40s when he died, okay. Yeah.
And I can't help but think of the comparison of a man born in Scotland, in Edinburgh, being so admired and loved by a man born in Wales.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. I don't see myself as James Connolly now. No. Jesus, no, there's only one James Connolly.
I know, but you're a supporter of her and an encourager of us all to go and search out more about him. And of course, your album and your song that you penned yourself, The Starry Plough, it's a stunning piece of work, Mick. And if it's okay, Mick, at the end of the show, I can play your Starry Plough song for our listeners to let them hear how good it is as well. Okay, the Druids, you've got great plans for 2021, I hope. Yeah, we've massive plans. So we've been in the studio recording an album, hopefully out in January. We're about 80% there with it. So final touches to be put on it at the beginning of January, and so hopefully it'll be out the end of January.
hoping to get back to the States this year. We have a gig up in a show up in Derry in the theatre, the Playhouse Theatre in Derry on the 27th of February. So that's the start of something to come. I hope that when the vaccine kicks in and all that kind of stuff, that we can get back to some sort of normality. And I'm under no illusion. I think it's going to be really hard for bands out there to kind of. I don't think we're going to go back to the level that we were at. I think we're going to have to work to get back up there, to be honest.
Your Derry gig is going to be streaming as well.
Yeah, it's going to be streaming. Yeah, so you can view it. You can view it online with a small subscription. I think it's something like £7 or something like that.
Have you got stuck into any of them online over the last 6, 7, 8 months, Mick?
We done we done something. I think it was Paddy's weekend that kind of went viral for us. We played a few tunes and Gary sat down and broke the chair, and it kind of went viral. We've thought about doing the.
Oh, I saw that clip. I saw that clip. It's hilarious.
We thought about doing some online stuff, but we didn't do it, Lar, to be honest. I think we kind of felt that we'd be better kind of focused on doing an album and so on. So that's kind of what we decided to do, And I want to mention a young guy as well who is. I look at him and I just think he's a rock star. I'm talking about Zach Moran. Oh yeah.
He has everything, hasn't he? The boy. He has looks. He has great hair, by the way, and he has a voice, and he's multi-instrumentalist and multi-talented. Tell us a little bit about Zach. Yeah,
Zach is probably he is. He's the most prolific musician I've ever encountered. He makes me sick, to be honest. He kind of he doesn't.
Jealous is the word.
Oh yeah, he doesn't even have to practice. You kind of. Anything at all, he'll just pick it up and play it. Like, even if he's never seen the instrument before, he'll pick it up and play it. And he's just so naturally gifted and naturally talented. I met Zach before. I was telling the story last week on another podcast. I think I met him when he was about 10, I think, at the time, 10 years old. We had played a festival in Zach's hometown, and we were going to another place to play that night. And we ended up at the Chipper, like as you do, And
I was actually there.
Were you there?
Were you playing in the back of a truck?
We were, yeah.
I was at that.
Were you at that?
Yeah. I wasn't in the Chipper though. Probably wasn't invited to that, but let's move on.
And so Zach was in the Chipper as well, little fella, 10 years of age, and he looked up at us and he says, "Are you the Druids?" And we go, "Yeah, we are, yeah. He says, "I'm going to be in your band someday."
Really?
At 10 years old. And so Zach done his first gig with us when he was 13. Yeah, we had a bass player in the band a few years later, and for whatever reason he couldn't make a weekend of gigs, and we was down in Achill Island, and I think we were in Achill, and then we were going to Donegal and then to Belfast. I think that was the vibe. So we couldn't find a bass player. Zach was hopping the bass guitar out of it at the time, really hopping it out of it, and so we asked him would he come with us. Sorry, we asked his mother. We asked his mother.
Get the man's permission.
Yeah, could he come with us? And she said yes, provided I go as well. So she came as well to look after him, and so that was the first weekend of gigs that he done with us. And I kind of always knew that somewhere down along the line Zach would play with the band, and so now he's in the band over 2 years at this stage. So he's a huge addition to the band.
And full circle, I suppose, as well with Gary Lawler.
Yeah,
and I know you've said this on many times, Mick, that he's not one of your favourite singers, probably your favourite singer. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful singer, and he's a funny character. But you have him back. You lost him for a little while in the band. Yeah,
we lost him in 2014. Again, Gary had choices to make in his own life, and he made them. And all you can do is respect somebody for that.
Yeah.
But he was gone for, I don't know, was he gone for 3.5 years or something like that? But he's back now, and back for the last couple of years. And it's great to have him back. He is my favourite singer. There's no doubt about that. And I never get fed up listening to him, ever. I've heard him sing more times than any other person I've heard sing. And I never get fed up listening to him. He's a very unique gift, in terms of interpreting a song. And the strange thing about this with Gary is Gary's no idea that he has that gift. He just sings the song, you know what I mean? It's a natural thing he has,
Therein is the beauty of it, you see.
Yeah.
And is there? You make me laugh because I'm thinking of the selfies and the YouTube videos that you just put up in the van and things like that. And I know that's half the crack, and that must keep you going in a way. But it's obviously a tougher side to the road as well.
Yeah. Well, you see the level that we're at, Lar. like we have to work for what we have. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I know some people say to me, sometimes I encounter people like, and they have this impression that the Druids are this, that and the other, but the reality is, Lar, that we have to graft for everything we have. You know, everything we have to graft for it. So, like, you know, a tour in Ireland for us would be quite common to play in Donegal tonight, Wexford tomorrow night, Belfast the next night, right? So you're on the road constantly.
Yeah.
In the States, you know, we do 14, 15-hour drives from gig to gig. That would be on a regular basis. You could be doing a 14-hour drive maybe 3 times a week or 4 times a week. And, like, you have to do something to kind of to break the monotony, you know, because if not, you'll start fighting with each other. And so the crack never stops.
Yeah.
There's someone getting wound up all the time, you know, from Lawler's just unbelievable. Like, from the minute he opens his eyes, he's like an Energizer bunny, you know, till the time he closes his eyes, someone's getting it, you know what I mean? So the crack is great, yeah.
And I have this question, this won't go any further, Mick, but sometimes when he wakes up and he's like that Energizer bunny, do you keep your eyes closed and pretend you're asleep?
I do sometimes, yeah. I do sometimes. What's interesting about the road, though, Lar, is that you get to know what people are like, you know.
Yeah.
It's like being married to 4 or 5 lads. Do you know what I mean? You get to know how to push their buttons. You get to know when to leave them alone. You get to know when people need a bit of space. You get to know all them things, and if you're able to accommodate that, then it's okay, you know.
Well, it's a very special place to be, and I know people all over Ireland and all over Scotland and the UK, and when you get to America to do the festivals, and you were back appearing on Patrick Johnson's radio show, the Irish Music Cafe, on a Monday night, in case you're listening. Patrick's a great guy, isn't he?
Ah, man, we I don't know, I can't remember what year it was. Maybe it was 2014 as well. I'm not sure. 2014, 2015. We had gigs. We had a tour booked in the States, a long tour booked in the States, and we were short one gig, right? And I just put up on Facebook one night that we have an opening on such a date if anybody wants us. Patrick Johnson brought us to Detroit. We'd never been to Detroit before. He put his head on the chopping block to bring us to Detroit. We went to Detroit. We played at the AOH Hall in Redford in Detroit. That night there was 105 people came to see us, paid in to see us, right? Wow. 105. Now we go to Michigan or to Detroit, and, you know, there's 5-6 times that.
Right.
But Patrick put his head on the chopping block for us, because if it hadn't have worked, his head was on it, not ours. Do you know what I mean? So I'd be very grateful to him for that, and I love his radio show. It's my favourite radio show. You know, he's
a great
advocate for Irish culture and music.
Yeah, and I suppose Patrick is, thanks for the word, Mick, he's a great advocate for keeping Irish culture and Irish music alive throughout America. Yeah,
he is, without a doubt, yeah. He's great.
And he came into the Sinead studio one night.
He did, I remember that fondly. He arrived and he was in Ireland on, as he would say, vacation, and he arrived in one night, and he was like a child in a sweet shop, you know. You see, sometimes I think with the radio show, and you know this as well, like from being in the radio show and doing your own stuff, that you've no idea who's listening. Like, you don't know who's listening, and you don't know how they perceive you or how they see you. So Patrick's in Detroit, listening to the show for years. The next minute he's in the studio, and he literally like a child in a sweet shop. You know, I
remember the night well.
Yeah,
like, he still posts the photograph up sometimes of yourself and himself sitting in there chatting to him, and he is such a nice man. And like yourself, I've been on a show a few times just chatting normally things, and he's great for giving you a plug. Like, if I want to plug a Seaview session or something I might be doing, and I know he's generous with his time for yourself and the bands when he's away over there as well. I suppose our common denominator, Mick, is radio and broadcasting, and our love of that as well. You started out in the Arthur College, was it the Griffith College?
Yeah, the Griffith College, yeah.
Was it named after Arthur Griffith by any chance?
It was.
Was it? Okay.
It was indeed, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that and your love of radio and broadcasting.
Yeah, I suppose as a kid growing up, radio was my medium. I used to grab the old stereo and rob batteries from other appliances and up the fields on a Sunday afternoon, Larry Gogan's Top 30, right? And I'd listen to the whole lot of it, lie under a tree and listen to the whole lot of it, and I'd be taken away, you know. And so radio became a huge part of my life. And then I discovered Christy Walsh on CKR radio, and he was brilliant. He was unique. And then I discovered Gay Byrne and, you know, the talk shows and stuff like that. And radio just creates this imagery for me. You know, these days I very seldom listen to CDs in the car or music in the car. It's radio. I like talk shows and I like that kind of thing. But I suppose I would have often said to myself, "Jez, I'd love to have a go at that." You know what I mean? And I remember one time I was living in Dublin at the time. I don't know what the circumstances were. I can't remember what the circumstances were, but I ended up presenting a couple of radio shows on Dublin South Community Radio in Dundrum. Yeah. Maybe 3 or 4 shows, and I fell in love with it. Yeah. I absolutely fell in love with it. You know, I think back to that time that I first went on stage in Ballycanoe, you know, kind of it allows you to get out of your head, you know, and so like I said, yes, I'd love to have a go at, and but the 3 or 4 shows, that was all it was. And then I got in contact with somebody I knew somebody who was in Dublin City FM and Olivia FM as it was at the time, and a conversation started then about me presenting a show in there, and I went in there to do 6 shows. That was it, 6 shows. Wow. And so 22 and a half years later, we're still there, you know. So
that's astounding, isn't it? Yeah,
Sin é is it's hard to describe. I find it difficult to describe what it is even. It over the years, it's went through highs and lows, you know. And
I can tell you what it is.
Go on.
It's Mick O'Brien. It's the everyman.
I don't know, Lar.
It's folk music, and I remember, Mick, I never heard this expression before until you said it to me. Folk music is music of the people.
It certainly is that, you know. It certainly is that. I think folk music is not played on Irish radio, you know, and I think if Sin é is the vehicle for that, well then that's something that I'm very proud of, you know. I'm really proud of it. You know, I've had my ups and downs with Sin é over the years. There's been times when I've got sick of it, to be honest. And there's been times when I've loved it. But, you know, there's times when I thought about giving it up, but never pulled the trigger, you know. So I don't think I will at this stage, you know. I don't think.
What made you not pull the trigger?
I think my love of that medium, you know, and what it does for me, you know. Some nights I go in there and I'm wrecked, absolutely wrecked, you know, from work or from the band or from life in general. But then you sit into the seat, like, and it's kind of like you're energized again, you know, and off we go again. You know what I mean? It's great, like, you know, what privilege and pleasure to be able to sit the same distance as me and you are sitting away from people who I really admire. You know what I mean? Yeah. Really admire their music and their songs. You know, I
just want to go back very quickly, Mick, to the start of your radio, your 6 shows in Dublin South Radio. Do you remember the first record you played?
I do, yeah.
Do you?
I remember it well, yeah.
Can I guess?
Go on.
Is it an Irish or
an Irish song? Yeah.
Oh, was it? Was it a Wolf Tone song?
No.
No. Okay, go on. I give up.
Summer in Dublin by Bagatelle.
Oh yes, I remember you saying that before to me. How did I not remember that?
Summer in Dublin. Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to Sin é as well. And just to let people know, I know from experience in radio and broadcasting and the little bit I do, is that it's a huge commitment from you, Mick, to do it. And congratulations. And I'll say this out loud to you. Like, everything that I'm doing now in radio and sitting in front of a microphone is mostly and because of yourself and the encouragement, and I'm not blowing smoke, because I had went in and I'd sat with Kieran as well, but then I found myself sitting in more with you on a Tuesday night, and we had a bit of crack and we had a bit of banter. So what I'm saying out loud is thanks for that encouragement and advice, and I learned a lot of my interview technique from you. So anyway, just saying it in public and out loud, a huge thank you for that as well, and I do appreciate it. You're talking about some of the people you've interviewed over the years, and of course the vanilla question is standout moments, Mick. 22 years is a long time in radio.
Yeah, it is a long time in radio. I think, well, the most nervous I was ever interviewing anybody was the first time I interviewed Christy Moore.
Yeah. There's a lovely story to that as well.
Yeah, I took the day off work and all, right? And took the day off work and went in and...
to settle yourself, huh?
Yeah, I'd done serious research, like, you know what I mean? And I'd written stuff down and, I'd notes coming out of everywhere.
Like, you know? Myself today.
Yeah, yeah. And I went in and just Christy arrived anyway, and so nice and so pleasant, and he says, have you got notes? I said, I have. Just notes. Jesus, I have so much notes here, it's unreal, you know. And he says, do you know what you do with the notes now? And I said, what's that? Throw them in the bin. And I did. I threw them in the bin, and I was so proud of that interview. I really was, because I had admired him for so many years, and what what a kind of gentleman that he is. You know?
He is a gentle human person. He's a great humanitarian as well. He's a lovely lover. Had you met him before that?
I had met him before that. I'd met him a couple of times before that. He was in my house one night in Ballyfermot many years before that. And I'd encountered him after his gigs and, that kind of stuff as well. But that time, meeting him in that kind of context where I had a responsibility to push something over the line, I was rattled. Now, I was rattled. And he says to me, he says, Mick, no, just calm down. You'll be grand. You'll be grand.
So we put you at ease.
Yeah, he was great,
But I also remember, Mick, and I've been lucky enough to sit in the room beside you when you're doing some of these interviews, and they're astounding. And there's some, standout moments and hairs standing up in the back of your neck when you're sitting with Jimmy McCarthy, when you're talking on the phone to Johnny Spillane, or I know you've interviewed the late Christy Hennessy as well. One standout for me is your friend Barry Moore, who people will know as Luca Bloom. You were equally as nervous that night as well.
I was rattled that night as well, and I suppose I was rattled for a different reason. The reason is that Barry is one of my closest friends, and I didn't want to mess up. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to do justice to him, he came in and sure, like, he was just astounding. Like, he was mind blowing. His ability to play guitar is like second to none, and he just gave so much of himself that night. In a manner that I hadn't heard him doing before. And maybe it was because of the friendship that we have.
Absolutely was. Yeah.
Maybe it was. I think Luca's. I always feel strange calling him Luca, but I think Barry's interview was probably the most listened to interview I've ever done. I think. Yeah,
I got a good few downloads afterwards. I remember. But I think was it that night or previous he had said to you, and I think it resonated with you, was that Barry Moore is who I am and Luca Bloom is what I do.
That's right. He did.
Was it on that night?
It was that night. Because I think I said to him exactly what I've just said to you on air. I think I said to him, I find it strange calling you Luca, and that's that was his reply, which was very good. Yeah.
And anybody else stick out for you? I know for your 21st celebration we had the brilliant Christy Dignam in.
Oh yeah. That was an ambition of mine, and in fairness to you, that wouldn't have happened only for you. He was on my bucket list. He was the last one that I really wanted to interview. And fair play to you. You pulled that over the line for the 21st anniversary.
It happened very quick.
Well, you rang me one day and said, like, the interview's happening on Thursday. Yeah. I think it was a Tuesday or something. You rang me and said, I'm going, what?
we spoken on the Monday.
Yeah.
And I said, do you need anything, Mick, for this? I said, who would you like to speak to? I'd love Christy Dignam. I said, for fuck. And it just so happened through the gigs I was running that I had met the guy who runs the gigs over in the Abbey Tavern in Howth.
That's right.
Vinnie Lawler. And Vincent had said, come over and have a visit. So I rang him and I said, is there any chance? I told him the story that you were this and you were committed to this for 21 years. Yeah. And I said his let's say his dream interview, for want of a better expression, is Christy Dignam. Leave it with me. He rang me an hour later and said, yeah, can you make it out to the Abbey Tavern? And for me, it was as equally astounding to be sitting, and I rang you the following day because it was late at night when I got word back. I rang you on Tuesday. I said, Mick, what are you doing tomorrow night? I don't know. We're going to see Christy Dignam over in Howth. And I mean, I know what it was like for me just because I brought the mic and the earphones just to set up the sound. Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I think you may have had the same experience of him, Mick, but he was very humble and he brought tears to my eyes at some stage because you really are sitting in the presence of somebody amazing. What was it like for you?
It was mind blowing, to be honest. Like the gravity of his contribution to Irish music has so often been underestimated. And really, the story we hear about Christy Dignam is his heroin addiction and that. But there's so much more to the man than that. So much more to him. And I think we dived in there a little bit. I'd love to do it again. You
did. And I'll tell you why. And it's why he wrote the book. It's exactly why he wrote the book. Do you remember him saying, and I haven't heard it since it was broadcast that year, but it's so etched in my memory that he did say exactly what you've just said. Yeah. It's the story of getting thrown out of Aslan, the drugs, this, that and the other, and being an absolute nuisance and all that. He said, but I've got grandkids. And he said, I want them to know the real story of Christy.
Yeah, and he gave us a bit of that night. I'll tell you what I was struck by, his humility. He was just so humble, you know. And just an ordinary guy, an ordinary guy again, you know. He was brilliant, and I really appreciated that opportunity to do it. But I'd love to get him into the studio. I'd love that.
Well, let's try for that, so Mick.
Yeah.
And also, you had said it to him, and it's what really kind of made me a little bit emotional was, and what you just said to there. He's sitting there, and he's just this man. He's jeans, runners, shirt, jacket, and you said to him, do you realise, Christy, the effect you've had on Irish society and Irish people around the world, and how you resonate with them, and your vocal and your songs? And he just kind of shrugged his shoulders, and you did say the word that a lot of them don't like you're kind of a legend, and he kind of shrugged his shoulders and kind of took it with a grain of salt. He
did, and that was very that was a real act of humility on his behalf, you know. Yeah,
and I can still feel that little emotion now thinking about that minute as well. Yeah. It's a standout. If you have standout moments in your life, like it's certainly one of them, and not something you're going to be doing every Wednesday night. You know?
No, it's not. Definitely not. I think the other one that stands out when you're just talking about emotions, the other one that stands out to me is so I interviewed Sean Connors on the occasion of his retirement from show business. So Sean is a comedian. He's not a folk singer. But I said, I'm interviewing him. So so he came in, he done a 2-hour interview with us, and it was brilliant. It was really, really brilliant, and I loved doing that. But then the 21-year anniversary show, which you produced and organised and done it so well, Sean came on the phone. I didn't know he was coming on, and Sean came on the phone to say a few words. And I broke down in the studio. I
remember.
I can even feel it still. You know what I mean? Right this minute.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ! I can, honest to God, I can still feel it. You know.
Well, I think that's the power of broadcasting, of music, and the effect that he had on your life.
Yeah.
And you know, I think it's a tribute to both of you, that you both felt that, and you could talk to him, and that you could in a room full of, that wouldn't have happened 5-10 years ago, a room full of blokes.
No, it wouldn't have.
And you know, that you were confident enough to be emotional about it.
Yeah.
So you have a high EQ as well, Mick. You know, I think he was brilliant, and I'm glad he was such an influence on you.
Yeah, I hate to think what my life would be like today had I not met him. Would I be here? I don't know, and that's the truth. I couldn't answer that question. Would I still be alive? I don't know. Probably not, to be honest.
I hear. Well, I'm. Is there anybody else? I know you've done the Christy Dignam. Is there anybody else you'd like to interview? Let's do the old typical question: dead or alive?
Oh, dead or alive? Luke Kelly, without question.
Okay.
I don't even have to think about that. Luke Kelly, without question. Brendan Behan, without question. Okay. I'd love to interview him as well.
Mr. Connolly?
James Connolly, without question. Jesus, I'd walk over glass to interview him. Alive? Let's see now. Who would I like to interview alive?
You mentioned a couple of names to me that we haven't had in yet, or you haven't had in
Go
yet.
on, remind me.
Sinead and Shane.
Oh yeah, definitely Sinead O'Connor. I'm a huge fan of Sinead O'Connor's. I think she's a warrior woman. You know, she's had so much adversity in her life, and I'd love to get her. I would love to get Sinead into a space where she felt she could be herself, and I would love to interview her on that basis.
Can you see that ever happening?
I'd have a go at it.
Yeah.
I'd have a go at it.
I don't mean the interview. I know that, but just getting her into a space where she can be herself. Like, we're quite comfortable chatting here together, you know.
Yes.
Do you think she'd do that? I think she would.
I'd have a go at that now. I'd have a go at trying to create them conditions. Now, whether I'd be successful or not, I don't know. Shane, like, you know, they done that tribute to Shane McGowan, the Late Late Show. I thought it was the most terrible and awful production that I've ever seen in my life, to be honest. And there was no justice in that for Shane. Now, I understand that Shane is difficult to understand at this point, but
I make allowances for that.
Oh, I'd love to have a go at it. I'd love to have a go at it. I really would.
Well, let's try it.
Yeah.
Someday we'll try it.
Yeah.
Well, look, if I could just end again by just saying it was great to sit down with somebody I admire so much, and but I really wanted to reach out to you because I knew you had a fascinating and a great story, and I knew you were an everyman, and I think people would be thrilled to hear this story, and I really do mean it. Thanks so much for the broadcasting lessons over the years, or whatever you want to call them, but certainly you might not think that you'd be watching But I did. And even though I had notes in front of me, I was just glancing at them. And you're going back to your Christie thing where he said rip up the notes. And I know you don't use prompt cards or anything like that. And it's astounding. It's something I'm not brave enough yet. I just can't walk without the aid of a safety net just yet across the tightrope. But Mick O'Brien, thanks so much for talking to me. And I mean that.
Lar, it's a serious pleasure. You know, I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing in radio in general, you know, with Christmas FM and with your,
a bit of crack. Yeah.
No, seriously, and your travel show as well, and now the podcast as well, and you're writing for Irish Music Magazine. Like I think, I know you've worked hard to do all them things, you know, and you're brilliant at what you do, and I'm really honoured that I was the first one. So thanks, Lar.
Yeah, no, you're very welcome. That's our guest today, Mick O'Brien from the Druids and everywhere else. Mick, before we go, the Druids website.
Yeah, thedruids.ie.
Yeah.
And you can get us on Facebook, the Druids Folk Band on Facebook, and Twitter and Instagram and all them kind of things, the Druids Folk Band.
Right. Mick O'Brien, thank you.
Thanks, Lar.
Rise up the Starry Bow in James Conley's name. Rise up the Starry Bow for his glory and his fame. He joined the Transport Union so workers could be free. He fought for Irish freedom for the likes of you and me. James Conley came from Scotland, a rebel to the core. He wanted not just freedom, but socialism and more. He said when we gain our freedom from England's cruel hands, we'll have to fight the bankers, we'll have to make a stand. So rise up the Starry Bow in James Conley's name. Rise up the Starry Bow for his glory and his fame. He joined the Transport Union so workers could be free. He fought for Irish freedom for the likes of you and me. He held his line for liberty in the GPO. He held his line for freedom and he would not let it go. Well, the Brits, they bombarded them and they smashed them brick by brick. He held his line for freedom and a socialist republic. So rise up the Starry Bow in James Conley's name. Rise up the Starry Bow for his glory and his fame. He joined the Transport Union so workers could be free. He fought for Irish freedom for the likes of you and me. Is a hero, and they shot him in a chair. They took him from the hospital, and those who were there, well, they set his lips at fire on that Easter morn. As the bullet pierced his heart, an Irish martyr was born. What will his legacy be now in this land of mine, where nothing has a reason and little has a rhyme? We fought the O's in Wexford, we drove out the blackened hands. Now we fight the bankers and their greasy hands. So rise up the Starry Bow in James Conley's name. Rise up the Starry Bow for his glory and his fame. He joined the Transport Union so workers could be free. He fought for Irish freedom for the likes of you and me. So rise up the Starry Bow in James Conley's name. Rise up the Starry Bow for his glory and his fame. Rise up the Starry Bow in James Conley's name. Rise up the Starry Bow for his glory and his fame. So rise up the Starry Bow in James Conley's name. Rise up the Starry Bow for his glory and his fame. He joined the Transport Union so workers could be free. He fought for Irish freedom for the likes of you and me. So rise up the Starry Bow in James Conley's name. Rise up the Starry Bow in James Conley's name.
Thank you for listening. This is Lar Flynn's Talks the Talk podcast.
Today's episode of Talks the Talk was proudly supported by the Penn Place in Dún Laoghaire Shopping Centre, by Murray's Haven Pharmacy in Killiney, and by Richard Means Dublin Food Sales. And my theme tune is called Celestial Soda Pop by Ray Lynch and is available on his album Deep Breakfast.